Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The banking alert popped on my screen while I was showering. I wiped my hand on the towel and unlocked the phone. $180 at a downtown spa stared back. My name is Jake and I was 32 that night. My first thought was simple: she broke our rule. I stepped out still dripping and walked straight to the bedroom. My chest thumped like I had sprinted, though I had not moved. We had made one clear promise about where hands could go. No stranger got to explore parts of her that felt like ours. Now my bank was telling me someone had collected a fee. She sat on the bed scrolling and did not notice me first. I held the phone out and watched the color drain from her face. "You booked a spa last night." I hear my own voice now and I sound already angry. Back then, I tried to keep it flat like a question. Her hands dropped to her lap and the scrolling stopped mid-swipe. "Yeah, I went for a massage after work." She said it too fast, like she had rehearsed the exact line. "Who worked on you?" The words came out rough and louder than I expected. She blinked once, then looked past me like the wall could help. "Just a therapist there. It was a regular appointment." Her voice tried to sound bored, but the muscles in her jaw jumped. I pulled the phone back up and read the business name again. 89 for the session plus another 89 for something extra. "You tipped almost a full second session. What was that for?" She stood up so fast the mattress bounced and the phone tilted. "Why are you going through my charges like I am a teenager?" "Because we talked about this exact situation and you knew that." I heard my pitch rise and I hated how desperate I sounded. I was not just jealous, I felt tricked in my own house. 2 Friday nights ago we lay in the same bed arguing. She wanted a massage for her back and hips and shoulders. I told her I was fine with it as long as it stayed clinical. I remember saying no sensual crap, no experimental stuff with some stranger. She crossed her arms over her chest like she needed armor from me. "It was clinical, that is why I went to a real place." "You are acting like I cheated on you with a coworker. Some guy rubbed your body for 90 minutes and you tipped huge." The way her eyes flinched at the word guy gave her away. "So a man did the massage." I watched her shoulders rise once, then drop like surrender. "You told me you would pick a woman if you ever went alone." She looked down and smoothed the sheet like a wrinkle mattered right then. "He was the only one open after work. It was late." "That spa closes at 8. I checked that before you booked anything." My brain did that ugly thing where it lines up timestamps and excuses. I scrolled back through the alert again just to keep my hands busy. Card present, which meant she stood there and paid in person. No online booking, no quick cancel button she forgot to hit. Reading this back, I can feel how cornered I already was. I latched onto the charge because it was proof, not just a feeling. If I had walked away right then, maybe we would still be easy. Instead, I kept pushing for details and she kept building higher walls. I did not know yet how far those walls really went. She picked up her phone from the bed and locked the screen. "If you do not trust me over a massage, then what are we doing?" She said that like the whole relationship sat on my reaction, not hers. I felt the choice rising in my throat and I swallowed it down. I nodded once and told her we would talk later. That was my first lie. The second she went to shower, I opened my laptop. I typed the spa name from the alert and hit enter hard. Their site popped up with smiling stock models and way too many packages. I skipped all that and found the menu with times and prices. 90 minutes matched the amount, plus a premium add-on that twisted my stomach. I clicked deeper and found the staff page with all their therapists. 4 women, 2 men, everyone listed with a short bio and specialties. One guy had full body focus, no area ignored, written under his picture. I stared at that line and felt my ears get hot. Her just a normal appointment story was already cracking at the edges. My brain started arguing with itself right there at the table. Maybe she picked a woman and the tip was for extra time. Maybe the premium thing was just stretching or some sports package. Honestly, I was talking myself down like I was handling a hostage. I knew I was lying to myself while I did it. She came out of the hallway with damp hair and car keys. "I'm running to the store. Do you need anything?" The question floated out like nothing was wrong between us. I shut the laptop a little too fast and forced a smile. "Get whatever you want." That last word tasted bitter on my tongue. After she left, silence pressed on me heavier than any argument. I opened the laptop again and checked the appointment times. On the site, the last slot listed for weekdays was 7 to 8:30. Her charge hit right before closing, exactly when couples usually wind down. I hated how easily every detail lined up with the worst possible picture. You know that feeling when your own house stops feeling safe? I had it right then and I needed something solid. Guessing from a website was not enough to blow up my life. So I grabbed my phone and scrolled to our shared carrier app. If I could see her texts, I would know if I was crazy. I watched the call log first, hoping for a clean list. Her last outgoing number matched the spa contact from the website. The duration sat there at 3 minutes, long enough for specific requests. Under that, another call to the same place 2 days before. Now I knew it was planned, not some walk-in impulse. When she came back from the store, I pretended to watch a game. She set bags down and moved around the kitchen louder than usual. She kept her phone face down on the counter the entire time. That was new and my heart tracked every time her screen lit. We talked about dinner like coworkers making safe small talk at their desks. She laughed once at some dumb joke and it sounded off-key. Her eyes flicked to my hands and then to my pocket. Everything good with work? She reached for a bag and brushed past me without touching. Busy, I answered, which was easier than saying my head was exploding. That night she crawled into bed early and turned away. She fell asleep faster than I thought possible after a fight. I lay there rehearsing speeches that all sounded insane out loud. I worried if I pushed too hard she would shut down completely. I also knew if I stayed in the dark I would lose my mind. I wish I could say I chose the noble route. I waited until her breathing went slow and heavy beside me. Then I reached over and lifted her phone from the nightstand. The screen lit up on my face like a spotlight in a bad movie. Even in the moment, I knew this was a line I could not uncross. I already knew the code because we used the same 4 digits. That fact still burns when I think about it now. Back then, I used it without hesitation and the home screen opened. A wall of notifications waited, with previews stacked over each other. At the top sat an unread text from the spa number. "Thank you for visiting. We hope your session exceeded expectations." Under that, a link asking her to rate her experience with her therapist. The message used his first name, one of the 2 guys from the site. My hand clenched around the phone so hard my knuckles popped. She had not just taken the only available appointment, she had picked him. I clicked the message thread and scrolled up to the beginning. Her first text read, "Hey, I'd like to book with him again if possible." Again. That word punched straight through every calming speech I had given myself. So this was not even their first meeting, it was a repeat performance. Higher in the thread, there was another short line from earlier in the week. "Is it okay if we do the same routine as last time?" The salon staff responded with a thumbs up and a confirmation. No details, nothing explicit, but my brain happily filled in the blanks. I knew exactly which areas of her body I had marked off limits. I backed out of the business chat and opened her messages with her friend. That thread was crowded with screenshots and random memes and real-life stuff. Buried between them was something that froze my thumb. Going back to that Mysore Friday, he unraveled every knot last time. My chest tightened, and I kept reading even though part of me begged to stop. Her friend replied with a row of shocked emojis and a question. "Is that really just professional or is it like extra?" My wife answered, "He gets really close, I just let my body handle it." Another line under that, "I don't touch him so it doesn't really count, right?" Seeing my own rule twisted into that logic made my vision blur. I stared at that one message for a long stretch of seconds. Technically, she was quoting what I told her during an old argument. At the time, I thought I was drawing a clear boundary around cheating. Reading it there turned into a loophole, felt like swallowing glass. It was my own words, but they were being used to excuse some stranger's hands. My thumb hovered over the keyboard like I might answer for her. I actually considered deleting the whole exchange and pretending I never saw it. If she never read it again, maybe she would forget how far she had pushed. Part of me wanted to protect whatever version of us still existed. The rest of me wanted to throw the phone across the room and wake her up screaming. I did neither, I just kept scrolling for more damage. A few messages down, she had texted that same friend right after the appointment. Just finished, my legs literally shook when he worked the back of them. Never had a massage like that in my life. I felt my stomach churn because those reactions used to belong to me. Lying there in the dark, I could hear her breathing still steady. She had no idea I was reading the private play-by-play inches away. You ever watch someone sleep and realize you do not recognize their choices? That hit me right then, heavier than the bank alert earlier that day. The person next to me was familiar and completely foreign in the same second. I locked the phone and placed it back exactly where it was. I lined it up with the corner of the table so nothing looked shifted. My heart raced like I had sprinted a mile even though I barely moved. I rolled onto my back and stared up into the darkness above us. There was no going back to the version of the story where I believed her. I spent the rest of the night starting and stopping imaginary confrontations. In one version, I stayed calm and just asked her to explain. In another, I packed a bag and drove to a cheap hotel. I kept swinging between wanting the whole truth and wanting oblivion. Every single version ended with that same line in my head, I just let my body handle it. By the time her alarm went off, my eyes burned. She reached across me to shut it down and brushed my shoulder. Her hand lingered a second like she wanted to test the air between us. "Morning," she whispered, voice still thick with sleep. "Yeah," I answered, already planning exactly how I would corner her over coffee. I dropped her mug on the table hard enough to splash. She flinched and looked up like she expected something to break. Her phone waited between us, screen dark, heavy as a brick. My hands shook and I locked my wrists around the mug. It was time to drag the whole thing into daylight. I tapped her code and laid the phone face up. The thread with the spa sat open near the top. Under it, the messages with her friend glared like warnings. She stared at the screen, lower lip caught between her teeth. Every excuse she tried earlier died right there on the wood. Walk me through what happened in that room from start. No shortcuts, no spin, just how it actually went. Her eyes stayed on the phone while she pulled in a breath. For a second, I thought she might grab it and run. Instead, she folded her hands like a kid at the principal. I checked in at the desk and signed the waiver. He came out and called my name like any other client. My jaw clenched at that word client, like paying erased everything. She kept going before I could interrupt with my own sarcasm. He led me back and told me to undress to my comfort level. He used that phrase comfort level like it solved everything. The phrase made my teeth grind every time I heard it. What does that even mean when your whole issue is boundaries? She rubbed her thumb along the mug handle, not looking up. I waited because every pause felt like another piece about to drop. I kept my bra and underwear on and got under the sheet. He knocked and asked if I was ready, then walked in. That picture alone made my skin feel 2 sizes too small. I pictured some guy closing us out and seeing exactly what was covered. That coverage line mattered more to me than any label today. He started on my back with very firm pressure along my spine. At first it hurt in a good way and I just focused on breathing. Then he moved to my lower back and hips and stayed there a while. She shifted in her chair, ankles crossing and uncrossing under the table. I locked on that nervous rhythm because her body was telling the truth. He uncovered one leg at a time and slid his hands from ankle up. She swallowed and finally met my eyes for half a second. When he got near the top, he asked if the pressure was okay. I said yeah, and I did not tell him to back off. The admission landed between us, heavier than anything from my sleepless night. So his hands were right under the edge of your underwear. My voice cracked and I hated how weak it sounded. Pretty much close enough that I knew what you are picturing. She squeezed the handle like she could crush the ceramic. Heat shot through my chest and I had to look away from her. Did he work your butt too, or did he skip that part? She hesitated long enough that I already knew the answer. He asked if I wanted glute work and I said yes. He tucked the sheet in a way where everything was technically covered. Technically covered felt a long way from emotionally safe in that moment. She took another sip of coffee and her hand shook slightly. When he worked that area, my body reacted and I froze. I did not tell him to stop because it felt good. Her voice dropped on that last word like she hoped I might miss it. My head roared so loud I almost missed my own next question. Did you finish on that table or not? I heard myself and knew there was no gentle version of it. She stared past me at the wall like the answer might be written there. After a long pause, she gave a tiny shrug that crushed me. Not exactly, she whispered, but I was really close and shaking pretty hard. I let out one sharp laugh and did not recognize the sound. So a stranger had you trembling on a table and I was funding it. Her shoulders hunched like I had thrown something heavy across the room. He was doing his job and I tipped because it worked. My palms slammed the table and the mugs rattled between us. Did you ever put your hands on him anywhere? She answered instantly with a flat no and narrowed eyes. I circled back because my brain needed every angle tied down. Did he move his hands between your legs at any point? I needed it on record out loud even if I already knew. She pinched the bridge of her nose and exhaled through her teeth. He went right up to the edge and stayed there in the same rhythm. He did not actually touch me there, not directly. I squeezed my eyes shut because that difference felt microscopic from here. The space she left between those words felt huge and useless at once. I saw your chat with her after the session. I watched the realization hit and her shoulders stiffened in slow motion. You told her you let your body take over while he worked. My voice dropped low without me planning it, almost a growl. You knew I would hear that as betrayal, not wellness. She rubbed her forehead like she was the one under interrogation lights. My back has been killing me for months and nothing else helped. I was there for relief and I let him do his routine. She used the word release again and I felt my throat close. Somewhere behind the anger, I could hear a tiny note of shame in her tone. I know I gave you that stupid loophole about not touching him. She nodded once like she had been waiting for me to remember that. I did not mean sign up for intense full-body euphoria with a stranger. I meant physical therapy-level contact and you know it. You took my worst wording and pushed it right to the edge. You were not in that room and he was. Her eyes filled but she held them wide like she refused to blink first. I went because I was tired of hurting all the time. That might be true, I said, but you stayed after it crossed our line. I needed her to admit at least that part without twisting words again. If another person gets you to that point, that is cheating to me. I jabbed a finger toward her phone like it carried smoke. You do not get to outsource pleasure and pretend it is clinical. I felt my hands tremble again and stuffed them under the table. Part of me waited for her to storm out, part hoped she would beg. I am sorry I did not shut it down sooner. Her voice cracked on sorry and something in me almost softened. I liked the attention and the lack of effort and I got selfish. She finally looked at me straight on like she was ready to take a hit. The problem was I had no idea what forgiveness would even look like anymore. You will not see him again ever if we stay together. The words came out steady and surprised me with how certain they sounded. She nodded without arguing and reached for the phone on the table. Right now, I added, because I do not trust what future you might rationalize. She unlocked the screen and I watched every move like evidence in a trial. She opened the spa thread and typed with slow, deliberate taps. Please cancel future bookings and note female therapists only from now on. She hit send and turned the screen toward me like proof. The tiny confirmation bubble popped up and changed exactly nothing inside my chest. I realized I could police her choices all day and still never erase that last visit. We sat there in silence with two half-empty mugs between us. To anybody else it would have looked like a normal, quiet morning. Inside my head I was already replaying every future touch in slow motion. Even if she never saw him again, I knew that room existed for us now. I could feel it waiting out there, daring me to pretend this talk fixed anything. Our first counseling session started with my nails digging into the armrest. I had agreed to go, but every part of me wanted to bolt. She sat on the other end of the couch, ankles knotted together. The therapist glanced from her to me and told us to start. I found out my wife was paying a man to touch her. The words jumped out before I could soften them. Her head snapped toward me like I had slapped her in front of him. The therapist raised a hand slightly and told me to keep going. She booked repeated sessions, specifically with one guy at a spa. She let him get her almost all the way there and never stopped. My voice shook and I hated how wounded I sounded in that room. She tipped him like he was delivering something special reserved for us. The therapist turned to her and asked what she heard in my rant. She stared at the floor and picked at a thread on her sleeve. I hear that he thinks I tr. a day at our marriage for a massage. She finally looked up and her eyes were already bright with tears. I also hear that he skipped the part where I was in constant pain. I clenched my jaw because that part was true and it stung. Pain had been hanging over us for months like a silent roommate. I felt the old guilt elbow its way into my anger. The therapist watched my face and asked why I had not gone with her. I hated that question on sight because the answer felt pathetic. I offered once, then work got crazy and I never followed through. I rubbed my palms on my jeans and stared at the carpet between us. It still does not justify some stranger almost getting her off for cash. The therapist did not argue that line, which surprised me a little. Instead, he asked her what the table felt like from her side. She took a long breath that came out shaky at the end. I felt wanted by someone who was focused on making me feel better. I did not have to explain or beg or worry about killing the mood. That last part landed heavier than anything else she had said so far. Because I knew exactly what she meant and it was not flattering. I saw flashes of nights where she tried to talk and I checked out. The therapist must have seen my face because he shifted toward me again. Have you ever looked for pleasure or comfort outside this relationship? I almost answered no on reflex, the word was right there. Instead, I swallowed and felt my throat burn on the way down. Yeah, I admitted, I used webcam sites when things were rough between us. Her head jerked up so fast I heard her neck crack. She sure had not expected me to throw that grenade into the room. They were live, not recorded, and I told myself it was harmless. I shrugged one shoulder and fixed my eyes on a spot on the wall. It felt easier than dealing with feeling unwanted or rejected at home. It was just me and a screen, no one touching anyone, nothing physical. Even as I said it, I heard how close my excuse sounded to hers. Her laugh came out short and bitter, almost like she choked on it. So my body on a table is unforgivable, but you tipping cam girls is therapy. She wiped under one eye with the back of her hand. You did not even tell me I had to find the charges by accident. That last detail hit the therapist's radar fast because he leaned forward. He asked her how long she had been carrying that discovery alone. Months, she replied, voice raw. I brought it up once and he minimized it. I told myself I was overreacting and pushed it down to keep the peace. She dragged in a breath, shoulders shaking once, then went still again. After that, I stopped believing he really cared how my body felt. That one sentence gutted me more than anything about the masseur. Because it was not about sex, it was about me backing away when she needed me. The therapist let the silence sit there until it stung my skin. Then he asked both of us what lines we thought were impossible to cross. His eyes landed on me first like he already knew my answer was shaky. Anyone else taking my wife to that edge is cheating in my book. I spoke slowly, each word heavy because I needed him to understand. I do not care if it is branded as wellness or treatment. If it ends with her shaking and biting her lip, that belongs at home. I heard my own voice and realized how possessive it sounded, even to me. Do you hear room for compromise in what he just said? The therapist looked at her now and waited, hands resting on his knees. She twisted her wedding band around and around without noticing. I hear that this may always be something he holds over me. I also hear that he wants to feel chosen, not just needed for rent and chores. That part actually stunned me because it was dead on. I wanted to deny it and could not get the word out. The therapist nodded slowly like he had spotted the center of the knot. He said we were both chasing comfort in ways that dodged vulnerability. That word vulnerability made my stomach flip because I knew I hated it. After the session, we walked to the parking lot without speaking. The air between us felt thick enough that every step was work. She unlocked the car and slid in, gripping the steering wheel hard. So I am a cheater and you are what? A victim with a subscription. Her voice broke on subscription and my face went hot. I am not pretending I handled anything well. I stared straight ahead because looking at her hurt. What you did on that table still crosses something for me. I cannot flip a switch and treat it like a sore back appointment. I could feel her eyes on the side of my head like heat. Do you really think I walked in there planning to betray you? She asked it quietly, but the words hit harder than any yelling. I opened my mouth and then closed it because I honestly did not know. All I could see was that text about almost losing control on the table. Once you see that, it is hard to picture innocence in the lead up. We drove home with the radio on low just to fill the air. At one point, her hand hovered near the console like she might reach for mine. She pulled it back and folded her arms across her chest instead. I watched that in the corner of my eye and said nothing. Sometimes not reaching is louder than any argument you can have. That night I grabbed a pillow and walked down the hall. She stood in the bedroom doorway watching me like she had been waiting. "You are not sleeping in here." Her voice was flat, but her fingers were tight on the frame. "I do not know how to lie next to you and not picture him," I answered. She stepped aside and let me past without touching my arm. "Is this punishment or self-protection?" The question followed me down the hall and dug into my back. I did not answer because I did not want to inspect it too closely. If I admitted it was both, I would have to own my part in the mess. The couch springs groaned when I dropped onto them with my pillow. I stared at the dark ceiling and listened to the pipes in the walls. Up the hallway I could hear faint movement where our room used to be ours. Every small sound felt like another reminder that we were living parallel now. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed of a door I could not get open. Over the next days, we talked about groceries and bills and nothing real. She would open her mouth like she wanted to say something and then wince. I caught myself checking her phone whenever she left the room. Not even reading, just scanning for new unknown numbers and spa reminders. Trust is not a dimmer switch, it was either gone or flickering wildly. One night she slid onto the couch beside me, leaving a careful gap. "Do you still want to work on this, or are we just waiting to see who blinks first?" Her eyes were tired, not dramatic, just worn down. I wanted to shout yes and no at the same time. Instead, I muttered that I did not know yet, which was the ugliest truth. Looking back, that was the moment I started drafting this in my head. I knew I would need someone outside the blast zone to weigh in. Friends would take sides, family would make it about divorce or staying. Strangers do not care if they hurt your feelings with their verdict. I did not realize then how much power I was about to hand a bunch of anonymous usernames. I deleted the search tab about divorce lawyers and opened Reddit instead. The cursor blinked in the empty title box like it was tapping its foot. My hands hovered over the keys, useless, while my stomach rolled. It was either type this out for strangers or keep drowning quietly. Silence at home suddenly felt louder than thousands of random opinions. I typed the first words, then erased them in one swipe. Wife crossed a line with a massage therapist looked weirdly soft. Wife paid for almost sexual massage after I begged her not to felt harsh. I sat there judging my own headline like a marketing intern. Every version twisted the story just enough to push blame one way. That was the part I was wrestling with more than I expected. I could write it so I looked like a saint. I could write it so I looked like a controlling jerk. Both had some truth and some spin depending on what I left out. In the end, I settled on something close to what you clicked. From down the hall came the sound of drawers opening and shutting. She was getting ready for bed, and I was drafting our case file. She had asked earlier, "Have you decided anything yet?" and I had dodged. "I am still thinking," I answered, staring at my phone like it mattered. This right here was what thinking turned into for me. I started with the money alert because that was the first domino. Then I forced myself to lay out the appointment pattern without exaggerating. Not dozens of sessions, just the actual few that blew everything up. I left out the spa name and his name because that was not the point. The point was where she let things go and where I looked away. Writing it down in order made me look worse than I expected. On the screen, I was the guy who never booked couple massages. I was the one who brushed off her pain until a stranger fixed it. I was also the guy who aimed my frustration at anonymous women on webcams. Reading it back, I could not pretend I was just some wounded hero. My phone buzzed on the cushion next to my leg. Her name lit up with a short message from the bedroom. "Are you coming in here or staying on the couch again?" I stared at the text longer than it deserved, then locked the screen. Answering her felt harder than answering a million faceless usernames tonight. Therapy homework sat half-finished on the coffee table beside my laptop. 2 columns labeled "Can forgive" and "Cannot live with" in my messy handwriting. In the first I had scribbled lies, scrolling, raised voices, cold nights. In the second there was one lonely line, someone else tacky. "NG, what is ours?" I tapped my pen on that sentence until the ink left a small dent. If I am honest, the cam stuff belongs in that second column too. Not because of what I watched, but because I hid it from her. She did the same thing in a different room with a real person. When I stripped it down like that, we looked uncomfortably similar. That realization did not erase what she chose, but it took me off my pedestal. I went back to the draft and added that part about me. My thumb hovered over the delete key the whole time. Admitting that to random internet people felt insane and weirdly necessary. If I wanted a real answer, I could not cut out my own rot. Owning it on a screen was easier than saying it to her face. The bedroom light clicked off and the hallway went dim. A moment later, I heard soft footsteps and then she appeared in the doorway. She leaned on the frame, arms folded, hair pulled back in a loose knot. "What are you working on out here every night?" she asked quietly. Her eyes dropped to the laptop and the Reddit logo gave me away. "You are posting about us." No question mark, just a flat statement that landed like a slap. I dragged the screen a little closer like I could shield it. "I am asking for perspective," I muttered, which sounded unbelievably weak. "So strangers get a vote on whether I am disgusting or you are overreacting." There was no good answer that did not make me sound awful. "I do not trust my own judgment right now," I said, voice low. "When I look at you, I bounce between wanting to hold you and pack a bag. If I ask friends, they either hate you or defend you without the truth. At least here people will tell me what they actually think." She pushed away from the doorway and took a step toward the couch. "Do I get to read what you write?" she asked, jaw tight. Her hand closed over the top of the screen before I could respond. For a second I considered letting her see every line, then froze. If she read it, I knew I would start editing for her feelings. "I need one place where I am not managing your reaction," I said. Her fingers slipped off the laptop and curled into a fist at her side. "Do whatever you want then." She turned and walked back down the hallway without waiting for more. The bedroom door stayed open, which somehow hurt worse than if she slammed it. I sat there with my heart pounding like I had run a race. Part of me wanted to shut the computer and crawl into bed behind her. Promise to never bring it up again, pretend this was just a rough patch. Another part pictured myself 3 years from now, still replaying that table story. Still checking her phone, still avoiding certain streets, still sleeping half turned away. I scrolled through what I had written one more time slowly. The title, the timeline, the details about both of our screw-ups. I added one last section explaining where we were right now. Different rooms, awkward therapy, nights where we almost touch then flinch. And the one rule I had laid down about never seeing that guy again. At the bottom of the post box, I typed the real question. If your partner did what she did, would you stay and try or walk? Does this count as cheating to you, or am I blowing up something fixable? Be honest, because whatever I decide next is going to hurt someone. I read that last line twice and felt my throat tighten. From the bedroom, my phone buzzed again with a new message. "I still want us," she wrote, "even if you need time and space." My finger hovered over her text, then moved back to the trackpad. I placed the cursor over the submit button and let it hang there. For a moment, everything in my life came down to that tiny click.